Welcome back to the deep dive. If your inbox, your calendar, maybe even your analytics dashboards feel less like useful tools and more like black holes, like places where crucial customer intent just seems to vanish, well, you're definitely not alone. We're here to give you that shortcut. Cut through the information overload, get right into actionable knowledge. Today, we're really digging into first-party event data. Specifically, how smart organizations think about those high-profile NFL event invites are using really precise RSVP tracking to, well, take back control. So our mission for you, the listener, is to get how organizers can genuinely own the engagement signal, how they turn a simple invitation into something strategic, like a data-rich asset.
That's exactly it. That's the essential pivot we're seeing. I mean, for too long, organizations have had to rely on these third-party platforms that, filter or abstract or sometimes just own the data about who engaged with what and when. This deep dive really shows you the mechanism to just bypass those gatekeepers altogether. It's about getting true insight fidelity, making sure the data tracking process is actually the engine of the event itself.
Okay, let's dive right in then. The foundation, first-party data collection. The whole strategic idea here rests on, well, data sovereignty, right? The research we looked at makes it super clear. The goal isn't just like tallying up RSVPs. The real mission is to track RSVPs per invitee and enrich each game with context. And that approach turns what seems like a basic logistical thing into a really high-powered analytics system.
And what's fascinating there, I think, is understanding the strategic benefit. When you capture that first-party data right at the moment of interaction, like when the fan opens the invite, clicks on the details, or registers their intent, you establish a direct relationship. It's measurable. It's highly valuable. You're not just relying on generic tracking methods anymore, where every visitor kind of looks the same.
And crucially, the system seems designed to remove those, inevitable data gaps. You maintain total control.
Right.
And that control is what guarantees, as the papers we read really emphasize, no black boxes, no third-party gatekeepers. This isn't just some technical preference, is it? It feels more like a strategic necessity.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially when high-value engagement is on the line. Doesn't matter if it's a sweet invitation to a playoff game or maybe a critical B2B webinar invite.
Yeah.
Exactly. The integrity of that data stream is just paramount. If you rely on some generalized platform, you lose the ability to ask those really nuanced questions about context. By controlling the collection mechanism yourself, you ensure the context you gather actually allows for precise, actionable segmentation and follow-up later on.
Okay, that sounds great. In theory, data control, no black boxes. But how does the system actually work? Like, on the ground, let's try and unpack the mechanics of this invitee record tracking. The system that turns a static calendar marker into a live intent signal.
Yeah, this is where event logistics really starts to merge with data science. Think of it like this. When an invite is sent, it doesn't just fire off a generic link. It actually creates a unique individual record tied specifically to that recipient. You could call it, a digital fingerprint or maybe a personalized key. And that record is designed to update in real time. It instantly reflects that individual's interaction.
Okay, so the beauty of this is the calendar or the invite tracker isn't just an archive of what was sent. It becomes this dynamic, constantly refreshing picture of current intent.
Precisely.
The research details 4 specific status updates that track the fan response. They seem simple, but I guess their clear categorization is where the power really lies.
Right. We start with the obvious ones. The baseline is no action. Simple enough. Invite delivered. Fan hasn't responded yet. Maybe they've seen it, maybe not made a decision. Then you have the clear answers. RSVP, yes, they've confirmed they're attending or interested. And RSVP, no, a clear decline.
But the real strategic insight, it seems, lies in that 4th status, and we should probably spend a bit of time here. RSVP maybe. This isn't just, a polite way of sitting on the fence. In the system, maybe is treated as a distinct, actionable data point. It's tentative, sure, but absolutely crucial because this is the audience most likely to respond to targeted nudges later.
But that does raise an important question, maybe for the listener to consider too. Doesn't tracking maybe just create more noise? I mean, why commit resources to what seems like a soft commitment?
Yeah, that's a really valid challenge. But the research seems to show that tracking maybe is actually where you can gain a massive marketing advantage. You're segmenting those individuals before they potentially decline. If you only track yes and no, you completely lose sight of everyone who was interested enough to consider it, but maybe just needed a bit more information or a reminder. So the maybe status lets organizers nurture that highest potential segment without wasting effort on the definite no's.
Precisely. And if you look at this from an operational clarity angle, the system provides its huge benefit by just eliminating manual reconciliation. Think about it. If a fan moves from maybe to Cass right at the last minute, the record just updates automatically, instantly. You get a single source of truth for headcount, logistics, everything.
That automation has got to be huge, right? Because that's where errors always creep in and time gets wasted comparing spreadsheets across different departments, trying to figure out who's actually coming.
Exactly.
This system ensures the data state is always current. It provides clean input for catering, seating, follow-up comms, everything.
Spot on.
Now, tracking the RSVP status, that's just the first layer of intelligence, it seems. To make that data truly useful, we have to talk about enhanced event data. This is about taking those base game details, the date, the opponent, and making them dynamic resources for context and storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely. When you think about it, a simple calendar invite is pretty static, isn't it? The date, the location, they're fixed. But if you're using first-party tracking, you actually have this opportunity to transform that static event into a rich, living asset, something that stays useful for the fan long after they've decided whether to RSVP or not.
So how does that enrichment happen practically? It relies on layering in specific types of dynamic content. Let me start with the logistical one, week grouping.
Right. Week grouping sounds simple, but it's strategically valuable. For events like NFL games, placing every game within the season's rhythm, week 1, week 8, whatever, gives immediate context. Where are we in this season? It helps the organizer segment invitations differently, maybe based on early season excitement versus those critical late season matchups.
Okay, that makes sense. Next, there's team information. This sounds like where you inject the visual stuff, the identity, into the invite itself.
Exactly. Adding high-res logos, direct links maybe to opponent stats, relevant context about that specific matchup, it makes the invitation instantly recognizable, and it adds depth without making the fan hunt around elsewhere for info.
And I guess this enrichment is necessary for that whole storytelling component you mentioned.
Yeah, it keeps the fan engaged with the content object itself. It means the invite isn't just, trash in their inbox once they've clicked yes or no. It becomes this kind of dynamic hub of information they might actually revisit.
Okay, my favorite enhancement, and the one that really screams system integration to me, is stats and scores. The research specifically mentioned incorporating results and performance data using public APIs. I think ESPN was the example.
Yeah.
This means keeping outcomes current even after the event is over. I mean, I'm fascinated by that level of integration. That sounds like it could be a heavy lift for the organizer, constantly pulling live data. How does that kind of enrichment actually impact the fan experience and, maybe more importantly, the organizer's effort?
Well, that's where modern integration techniques really shine. It relies on stable, often public APIs, sometimes webhooks. The system's set up to pull that data automatically, pretty much instantly. So the fan sees the latest context without the organizer having to manually update like 50 different event pages or records. It turns these static events into what the research called dynamic content objects. They stay valuable before and after kickoff. You're basically creating persistent content that fans might actually return to, giving you continuous engagement signals.
Okay, so let's boil this down. What does this all mean for you, the listener? If we synthesize these two systems, the precise RSVP tracking and the enriched game data, what's the ultimate yield?
Well, it's a powerful, proprietary, first-party analytics layer that you completely control. That's the strategic payoff.
Yeah.
Because you own the signal and the context, you can immediately start measuring real intent based on that specific RSVP status. You can finally move beyond those generic bulk emails.
Right, you can segment your audience with almost surgical precision. Like you could group everyone who said yes for just the logistical reminders, and then group those really crucial maybe attendees for hyper-targeted content. Maybe send them an exclusive video about stadium improvements or a deep dive into the opponent's weaknesses, something to nudge them over the line.
Exactly. And once you have those targeted segments, you can trigger highly relevant follow-ups almost immediately. This targeted communication, instead of just spamming everyone, is how you convert that soft intent into hard commitment. It dramatically increases efficiency, too, because your marketing efforts are only hitting people who've already shown a pretty high level of interest.
Okay, so to tie this all together, using the summary benefits from the research we looked at, this integrated system delivers three key things. First, Own the signal. You get direct, transparent data with your fans, no third-party interpretation getting in the way.
Hmm.
Second, operational clarity. Those auto-updating RSVP states, they dramatically cut down the reliance on manual spreadsheets, reconciliation work, leads to more efficiency, fewer errors.
Absolutely crucial. And finally, actionable context. Those enriched data layers, the weak groupings, team info, the scores, they turn your basic event records into valuable, dynamic content objects. They keep driving engagement long term. At the end of the day, this whole approach is about controlling the narrative and the data flow, right from the beginning to the end. It turns what seems like simple event participation tracking into real strategic insight generation.
Okay, that brings us to our final thought, something for you to chew on as you leave this deep dive. The core insight here, I think, is that the system deliberately dedicates resources, creates distinct status records, just for that tentative response. Maybe. It treats maybe as a live intent signal that's actually worthy of dedicated strategic effort. So we ask you, if maybe is treated like that, like a live signal worth its own record, what other common, maybe vague interactions in your daily work or your research, those soft commitments, those tentative interests, maybe partial responses, are you currently missing out on those? Are you just defaulting those potentially critical high potential interactions into the generic no action bucket simply because you haven't assigned them a clear, actionable data status? It definitely raises an important question about how you classify true interest, maybe in every aspect of your business. And that's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us as we uncovered the strategic power of first-party event tracking. We'll catch you next time.